800 migrant families being booted from Denver shelters as city nears breaking point. The city of Denver has begun ejecting around 800 migrant families from shelters as it scales back on aid for legal. Oh my God. They're evicting, they're throwing out these poor people who came here illegally, who shouldn't be here in the first place. They're throwing them out. Families, right here in the article, it says, from shelters in Denver. What is Denver? Denver is a self declared, I think probably by city council or something, a sanctuary city. Now, let me backtrack a little bit in my personal history. I remember, and many of you do too, I remember when the whole sanctuary thing started gaining speed. It became this political pawn, this virtue signaling tool that many in public life, elected officials, again, advocacy groups, they all utilize to beat me and people like me who believe in the rule of law, who believe that only American citizens or people who migrated here legally who want to become American citizens, follow the law, should be here in the first place. They beat us over the head, calling us racist and xenophobes, anti-immigrant, all of these condescending names. That's what they called us. Now the same people, again, self-declared sanctuary city, now they're throwing people out of their shelters. Why? Because reality is beating them over their big, small-brained heads. That's why. And again, they still want to blame other people for their failings, but now reality's setting in. See, here's my point, ladies and gentlemen. I've been consistent. People who subscribe to what I believe that people should come here legally, only people who want to become Americans, only people who want to embrace Americanism should be allowed to come into this country, that immigration should be for the betterment of the United States, of our civilization, of our culture, of our country. Those people we are the racists. I am consistent. I believed it 30 years ago. I believe it now. These are the people who were so big on sanctuary cities. Come one, come all. We're going to protect you from the evil ICE agents. We're going to protect you from local government. They're not going to be able to deport you. And by the way, what was their mantra? What was their mantra about sanctuary cities? Here was their soft sell to all of us. Here's what it was. Well, we want people to come out of the shadows. You understand that if these poor immigrants who are just here to work, and by the way, many of them are just here to work. I understand that. Just here for a better living. Again, if I lived in one of those countries where true oppression exists, I would want to get out too and take care of my family. But that's a separate topic. We understand this. But their argument was, we want them out of the shadows because they won't talk about the crime being committed against them or crime being committed by other people in their city, in their community. They'll be afraid to come to the police and be good witnesses if they think they're going to get deported. Remember that argument? I said at the time that was BS. That was made up. That was a political strategy. Here, the bottom line is that they should not be here anyway, legally, based on existing law today and existing law 30 years ago. They shouldn't be here in the first place. So for now, for us to acquiesce as a society, as a nation, and say, well, we'll go ahead and protect them from the federal government because we want them to be good witnesses. This is derangement, ladies and gentlemen. This is craziness. If they weren't here in the first place, they wouldn't have to come out of the shadows. So let me read on with this article here about Denver, the wonderful sanctuary city that's not anymore. On Monday, about 140 families were booted out from temporary accommodations in Colorado's capital, with the remaining 660 families expected to be removed over the next few weeks, according to city officials. Oh my God, Denver is evil. They're booting these poor people out. I can't believe it. The sanctuary city has been struggling to stretch its limited resources to support the growing number of migrants in the city. Texas has transported thousands of migrants to sanctuary cities like Denver to showcase the problems border states face when migrants flood their cities. I want to talk about this in a minute. With overcrowded shelters and overrun hospitals, Denver state officials have begun enforcing a limit on the amount of time that migrants can stay in the state provided rooms to accommodate the daily influx of individuals, according to a report from NBC News. As of last week, Denver was sheltering 3,813 people, with more waves of illegal immigrants still descending on the city. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, a Democrat, no kidding, said the city is at full capacity. Quote, "We have filled every single hotel room that we have available in the city and county of Denver," Johnson said during a town hall meeting this week. Quote, "Now we have the terrible decision that if we don't start exiting folks," I love these euphemisms, exiting folks, evicting, booting, that you actually used that word earlier. "We will have 250 folks that will arrive today or the day after who don't have anywhere to go at night," Johnson said. Johnson told Fox News last week the city was very close to breaking point due to the crisis. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, the crisis is self-imposed. The crisis is self-imposed. Greg Abbott is sending people to New York City, to Chicago, to Denver, to other places across the state because they have self-identified as a receptacle, as a sanctuary city to absorb these immigrants. That's why they're being sent there. They asked for it literally. The city had initially paused shelter exits due to the colder weather, but due to space and timing, the pause will end this week, according to 9 News. Previously, migrants with children were allowed to stay for 37 days. As of Monday, February 5th, 2024, Denver has supported 38,380 migrants from the southern border at a cost of more than $42 million. A statement on the city's website reads, I want you to think about that, folks. $42 million. That's $42 million of Denver taxpayer money. It came out of the pockets of Denver taxpayers, citizens of the United States, citizens of Colorado. That's $42 million, none of which is going to sanitation, none of which is going to education, none of which is going to healthcare, none of which is going to public safety, none of which is going to EMS. It's all going to support people who should not be here legally in the first place. That is money that is being spent on people who should not be here illegally. That is money being spent by people who have worked hard, who have it taken from their pocket by the city of Denver, by the state of Colorado, that they will never see reimbursed to them in services that are promised to them from their local and state government. This is evil. This is absurd. And now Denver politically is paying the price. They put themselves in a hole like so many other cities have. This influx of migrants is straining capacity, do you think? And based on current projections, could force the city to cut as much as $180 million from its annual budget, the city said in a press release. No, that's another twist in words. You should think about this. They're not going to cut $180 million from their budget. They're going to reallocate the $180 million to support illegal immigrants. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you have to look at the words these people put down. This is from the city's press release. Somebody thought about this when they read it. They're not cutting the budget. They are taking more money from the people who made that budget possible, the taxpayers, and they are reallocating it to people who never paid into the system. This is patently and absolutely unfair. You talk about fairness, this is unfair. Yoli Cassis of the nonprofit Viva Wellness said the number of migrants arriving in the city is unprecedented. You think so? Viva Wellness is helping the city address its migrant crisis. This is a quote from Yoli. We have never seen so many people come and so many people in the last year. I wonder why. Why in the last year? Gee, what's been going on? Oh, yeah. Another couple of million people have come across the southern border. Maybe it has something to do with it. And by the way, I'm only guessing here. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm really going to stretch the possibility here. So forgive me if I say something that may be a little inaccurate. I'm going to guess that Yoli Cassis from Viva Wellness probably supports open borders. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, Yoli, please reach out. We're all over the internet, your Leo Nation, and tell me if you actually supported the border wall right here. I'm a nice guy. I'll respond to your comment, and I would like to find out if you supported open borders and you were opposed to a physical barrier being built between the United States and Mexico. I'm just curious. For me, February 1st, this is her Yoli. I don't know if Yoli is a man or a woman or something else, but Yoli Cassis. February 5th, for me, is a date that hurts a lot because it's a date that, for various reasons, we're full. Cassis told 9 News, there's just no more space. The city has also been helping migrants leave the city by purchasing bus tickets. In January alone, the city purchased more than 2,000 tickets, sending people to other destinations within the United States, with most going to, you got it, New York City and Chicago, according to Denverite. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, remember when Governor Abbott, Governor DeSantis to a lesser extent, do you remember when they start busing people to Martha's Vineyard, New York City, Chicago, Denver, other places? Do you remember what that was called? Do you remember what the media call it? Do you remember the mainstream media, elected officials from one side of the political spectrum were calling that? I'm not going to ask you again. Have you forgotten? I haven't. They called it a political stunt. They called it a political stunt. Do you know what else they called it? Go back and look up for yourself.
The fact that Fox News and not Department of Homeland Security, the city, or local NGOs were alerted about a plan to leave migrants, including children, on the side of a busy DC street makes clear that this is just a cruel, premeditated political stunt. This is what they are doing. The migrants, including children, who arrived in Martha's Vineyard were misled about where they were being taken and what would be provided when they arrived is also deeply alarming. They deserve better than being left on the streets of DC or being left in Martha's Vineyard. They deserve a lot better than that. And as we have done many times in response to attempts to create chaos and confusion by Republican governors, we are working to manage the consequences of these two stunts as well.
They wanted to charge, maybe they're still trying to charge these governors. They wanted to charge them with kidnapping, human trafficking. Do you remember this? I'm not making it up. Go look for yourself. Do you remember this happening? Kidnapping, political stunt. However, when a Democratic mayor who's the head of a city that self-identifies as a sanctuary city, when they buy 2,000 tickets with taxpayer money to bus people to other sanctuary cities, crickets. Not a damn thing is said, not a peep. This is the inconsistency. This is the lack of principle that so many people in places of authority have. There is a sickness, an inability. There is no self-reflection. There is only propaganda. There is only virtue signaling. But when that virtue signaling comes home to roost, when you can't afford to put these people in any more shelters, when these people start dragging women through the streets of New York City on mopeds that are being stolen from that woman, when cops are being assaulted by illegal aliens who then flip off the cameras, who flip off you and me when they're released because of Alvin Bragg in New York City with no bail, then things begin to change. Then the governor of New York, now she steps up and says, we shouldn't be assaulting cops. I won't stand for this. Where were you, Hochul? Where were you when you were letting these people, when you were one of the people who said that walls probably are not a good idea, I'm just guessing, where were you when thousands and thousands of these people were being released into your city? How come you didn't stop it then? I'll tell you why. Because now it's becoming a political nightmare for you and your ilk. That's what's happening. Let me continue, shall I? The influx of migrants has also put the city's health system at a breaking point. No duh. We talked about this in general. About 8,000 illegal immigrants recorded about 20,000 visits to Denver Health last year, receiving services such as emergency room treatment, primary care, dental care, and yes, of course, childbirth. The visits contributed to the system being in the red by about how much? $22 million. Denver passed laws to become a sanctuary city, but it doesn't include a right to shelter provision, which means there is no official policy that compels the local government to provide shelter indefinitely. Not only are they virtue signalers, they're not even good planners for their own strategies, their own philosophies. If you're going to be a sanctuary city, why don't you build some shelters at least to house these people?